The judge rolled his eyes when a teenager walked into the courtroom in jeans and a t-shirt. But by the end of the trial, that same judge stood up and apologized in front of a stunned courtroom. Why? Because this 16-year-old wasn't a defendant. He was a genius lawyer who dismantled a seasoned prosecutor and made history. This is the story of Jordan Miles. Asterisk, take a seat, kid. This isn't a joke. Asterisk, the judge's voice cut through the courtroom like a blade, sharp, dismissive, and full of authority. His name was Judge Malcolm Greene, a man known for his no-nonsense approach and zero tolerance for nonsense in his courtroom. But the young teenager who had just stepped forward wasn't flinching. The courtroom, buzzing just moments ago, fell into a tense hush. Heads turned, murmurs died in the air. Every pair of eyes locked onto the boy now standing at the defendant's table. He wore no tie, no blazer. Just a plain gray t-shirt, a cheap wristwatch, and jeans. Not exactly the uniform of a lawyer. Not even a law student, asterisk, yet he didn't hesitate. He stood tall, his hands resting calmly on the table, his eyes steady and fearless, asterisk. Are you lost? Judge Greene asked again, narrowing his gaze. A slight smirk tugging at the corner of his mouth as if waiting for the punchline of a bad joke, asterisk, but the boy didn't smile. He didn't stammer or look unsure. He replied with the calmness of a seasoned professional, asterisk, I'm not. My name is Jordan Miles. I'm here to represent my client, Mrs. Elena Woods, under Section 25 of the Provisional Youth Legal Counsel Act. Asterisk, the statement landed like thunder. For a heartbeat, the courtroom froze. Then came the whispers. Did he just say represent? Section 25? Who is this kid? Even the bailiff shifted uncomfortably, unsure whether to laugh or intervene. Asterisk, the elderly woman sitting beside Jordan Elena Woods looked up at him with eyes full of trust and fear. Her case wasn't minor. She had been accused of theft, facing possible jail time. And now, standing in her defense, was someone who looked like he had just walked out of a high school hallway. Asterisk. The prosecuting attorney leaned toward his colleague and whispered, This has to be a publicity stunt. But it wasn't. Jordan reached into a worn leather folder and calmly handed the clerk a printed document, my certification. I'm operating under the mentorship clause approved by Judge Helena Martinez. Asterisk, the judge raised an eyebrow and took the paper. His eyes scanned quickly. The seal was real. The signatures were authentic. Asterisk, silence returned. But this time, it wasn't confusion. It was curiosity. Asterisk, who was this boy? And why did he walk into this courtroom like he belonged there? Asterisk, everyone was about to find out. Asterisk, Judge Greene stared at the document in front of him like it couldn't be real. His fingers drummed against the bench as he reread the header. Provisional Youth Legal Counsel, Active Participant Certification. Asterisk, he looked up slowly. You're telling me you passed the bar? Asterisk, Jordan nodded once. At age 15, sir. Asterisk, another wave of whispers rippled across the courtroom like a tremor. A woman in the front row leaned forward, whispering, 15? That's impossible. Phones were already out, thumbs flying across screens. Someone was Googling Jordan Miles right there in court. Asterisk, the judge signaled to the bailiff. Recess, 5 minutes. I want this verified. Asterisk, as court paused. Reporters and spectators swarmed. The prosecution leaned over their table, clearly annoyed, clearly threatened. This is insane, one muttered. If this is a joke, it's going too far. Asterisk, but it wasn't a joke. And they were about to learn exactly who they were dealing with. Asterisk, a few minutes later, the courtroom reconvened. And this time, it wasn't just with curiosity. It was with awe. Asterisk, the court clerk stood and read aloud what everyone had just confirmed online. Asterisk, greater than Jordan Isaiah Miles, passed the California bar exam at age 15, graduated from UCLA School of Law under the Early Talent Acceleration Program, completed undergraduate studies in legal theory and public policy by the age of 13, IQ 162, considered a legal prodigy and advocate for criminal justice reform, especially in underprivileged communities. Asterisk, the judge blinked. The prosecutor sat down, stunned. And in the middle of it all stood Jordan, hands calmly folded, posture straight, face unreadable. Asterisk, Mrs. Woods looked at him with wide eyes. You really know what you're doing? She whispered. Asterisk, he gave her a small nod. I didn't come here to lose. Asterisk, Jordan wasn't some viral internet genius looking for attention. He wasn't a social media stunt. He was the real thing. A gifted young man who had studied law not to impress, but to fight injustice. His own brother had been wrongfully convicted at 17. Jordan had made a silent promise to himself that day. No more silence. No more fear. The courtroom was no longer mocking him. Now, they were watching him, and Jordan. He was just getting started, as the judge gave a subtle nod for the trial to resume. The courtroom settled into a stunned silence. No one could have predicted this. A 16-year-old legal prodigy standing across from a seasoned prosecutor with 2 decades of courtroom victories under his belt, but Jordan Miles didn't look nervous. He looked focused, the prosecutor, Mr. Harold Benton, a man with a sharp jawline and a reputation for crushing defense attorneys, adjusted his tie and stood up with a smug grin, "This is absurd," he began, addressing the judge. "The law may permit this, but let's be honest. This child isn't ready for a courtroom like this. I won't hold back, Your Honor." Jordan didn't blink. When it was his turn, he walked to the center of the room. No script, no notes. Just clarity in his voice and a determination in his eyes that stopped even the loudest doubters cold. "Let's begin with the evidence," he said, holding up a photo of the pharmacy from which Mrs. Woods was accused of stealing. This surveillance footage was timestamped incorrectly. The system hadn't adjusted for daylight saving time. It's an hour off. The judge leaned forward, interested. Jordan continued, "That means my client was nowhere near the store at the time the theft actually occurred. And here's proof she was at a community clinic at that exact hour, receiving medication she was later accused of stealing." Gasps, real gasps. From the crowd, from the jury. Even the judge paused. But Jordan wasn't done. He brought in a witness, a nurse from the clinic who confirmed Elena's appointment. Then he presented a receipt from the pharmacy showing the meds had already been paid for by her insurance. 3 days before the supposed theft. The prosecutor objected. Frustrated, "Your Honor, he's cherry-picking facts." Jordan responded, without flinching, "I'm picking the truth, sir. If that feels uncomfortable, perhaps you should look at your own argument." The courtroom erupted in murmurs. By now, Jordan had complete control. His logic was airtight. His delivery, respectful but firm. He anticipated every move from the prosecution like a chess master 4 steps ahead. People began recording with their phones. Not to mock him, but to capture history. Even Judge Greene, once so dismissive, was taking notes. Jordan wasn't just defending a client. He was rewriting what everyone thought was possible in a courtroom. For most of his 34 years on the bench, Judge Malcolm Greene had believed he'd seen everything. Petty crimes, high-stakes trials, even courtroom meltdowns. But never this. Never a teenage boy outmaneuvering a veteran prosecutor with poise, precision, and a command of the law that rivaled seasoned professionals. And never had he been this wrong, so quickly, so publicly. At first, Greene had thought Jordan was a joke, a headline waiting to happen. A media stunt. Now he was leaning forward on his bench, elbow on the armrest, hand against his mouth, watching not a child, but a force of nature. Jordan's presence in the courtroom was no longer a novelty. It was commanding. When the prosecution called their final witness, the store manager from the pharmacy, Jordan stood and asked just one question. "Can you confirm that your surveillance cameras were synchronized to official local time during the date of the alleged theft?" The witness hesitated. I'm not sure. Jordan turned to the judge. "No further questions. The integrity of the timeline is unverifiable. Therefore, the accusation cannot be supported by factual evidence." Even the jury nodded. The logic was irrefutable. The calm with which he dismantled the prosecution's case was something even Judge Greene hadn't seen from full-grown attorneys. But it wasn't just Jordan's legal brilliance that started to chip away at Greene's hardened exterior. It was his composure, his respectfulness, and his unwavering belief in justice. After a short recess, Jordan delivered his closing argument, not from notes but from memory, his voice steady. His tone personal. Greater than Mrs. Elena Woods is not a thief. She is a grandmother, a diabetic, someone who walked into a pharmacy to claim the medication her insurance had already paid for. And today, she almost became another name in the system, silenced because no one thought to look deeper. I'm asking you to look deeper. Because justice doesn't wear a suit. Sometimes it wears sneakers. The courtroom sat frozen. Judge Greene leaned back in his chair. exhaled deeply and looked down at the gavel in his hand. In that moment, he wasn't looking at a kid playing lawyer. He was looking at someone who was born for the law. For the first time in years, Greene felt something stir deep inside him, a strange, humbling mix of admiration and regret. He had misjudged Jordan Miles, and soon he'd have to admit it. Not just to himself, but to the entire courtroom. The jury had been out for less than 15 minutes. When they returned, their expressions said everything before the foreman even spoke. The courtroom held its breath. The judge asked, "Have you reached a verdict?" Asterisk, the foreman stood. "We have, Your Honor," asterisk, a pause. You could hear a pin drop, asterisk, greater than in the case of the state versus Elena Woods. "We find the defendant not guilty on all counts." For a brief second, silence, then a wave of emotion swept across the room. Asterisk, Mrs. Woods gasped. Her hands flew to her face. Tears poured down her cheeks as she whispered, thank you, baby," and clutched Jordan's arm. Asterisk, the gallery behind them broke into soft applause. A few even stood. The same people who once scoffed at the boy in a gray t-shirt were now recording history with trembling hands. Asterisk, Jordan didn't smile. He didn't pump a fist or soak in the praise. He just exhaled, quiet and steady, like a man who had done what he came to do. Asterisk. He helped a woman walk out of that courtroom with her dignity and freedom intact. Asterisk. But just as he turned to leave, Judge Greene raised a hand. Asterisk, Mr. Miles. The judge said, voice firm. Asterisk, Jordan stopped, turned. Yes, Your Honor. The courtroom went still again. The judge looked down for a moment, then back up, his voice carrying a weight it hadn't held all day. Asterisk. Earlier today I mocked you. I looked at your face, your age, your clothes, and I made a decision about you before you ever opened your mouth. That was unprofessional, it was wrong, and now I owe you not just an apology, but a thank you. Asterisk, Jordan's eyes stayed locked on the judge's. Asterisk, greater than. Today you reminded me why this courtroom exists, not for egos, not for power plays, but for justice. And sometimes justice walks in wearing sneakers. A quiet laugh rolled through the gallery. Then came applause. Asterisk, real, honest, emotional applause. Asterisk, and as Jordan packed his folder and guided Mrs. Woods out of the courtroom, someone caught it. On camera, the calm walk of a young man who had just turned a system upside down without raising his voice. Asterisk, that video. It went viral by nightfall. Asterisk, thousands shared it. Millions viewed it. Headlines exploded. Asterisk, teen legal genius destroys prosecutor and the judge who doubted him. Jordan Miles, the boy who made the courtroom stand still, and in comment sections, one phrase echoed over and over. Asterisk, age doesn't define power. Proof just walked out of a courtroom. Asterisk, what if the future of justice isn't found in law schools, but in voices we're still learning to listen to? Let Jordan's story remind us. Never judge a book by its cover, and never underestimate someone with fire in their heart and facts in their hands. Asterisk, like, comment, and subscribe to Justice Struggles, where stories speak louder than assumptions.